Show me.
I'm the martial arts film freak, and I watched Carter.
A mutant virus has emerged with over 8.5 million infected.
제가 치료제잖아요. 인간 치료제.
아저씨 꽉 잡아.
Carter is a 2022 South Korean film available on Netflix, or at least US Netflix, I'm not sure about the rest of the world. Was directed by the director of the awesome film The Villainess, which is Byung Gil Jung, and stars Ju Won, Kim Bo Min, Sung Jae Lee, Camilla Bell, and many, many other people. This is a long, long movie with so much going on. Carter tells the story of Carter, or is that his name? Carter has amnesia pretty much as far as we can tell through most of this movie, and he is tasked with protecting and saving a child whose blood is the cure, or at least the deterrent, to a virus going around the Koreas, both North and South, which is pretty much a rage virus similar to 28 Days Later. But it also keeps them intelligent. Like, they're angry, but it's like the crazies, really, because they can use guns and weapons and stuff, so it's more the crazies instead of 28 Days Later. And then there's also North Korea and South Korea and the US working together to try to solve it, but none of them can trust each other, so everyone's turning on each other all the time. And then our hero, Carter, is also trying to figure out who he really is, because, again, amnesia. So that's sort of three major plots. There's too much going on. This is a long movie, and it was kind of hard to follow. It didn't help that every single plot constantly had a turn that you had to understand and follow. This movie had more turns than The Big Show's career. Wrestling reference for the video. On top of the plot, this movie is also a single-take action film. The film, just like a 1917 or a Birdman or that Hitchcock movie from a long time ago, Rope? Briefcase? Something? I don't remember what it's called. It's single take. It never cuts the entire film, at least from what we can tell. I mean, you can kind of figure out where the hidden cuts are. And so that is a choice that this film made that I did not love. But I'll get to that later. Let's talk a bit about this plot here going on. Again, there is so much going on with this movie that it is extremely hard to follow, and I think the movie knows that it's a little hard to follow, because there are times when the movie will just say, like, a major plot point or a twist or an exposition dump in the middle of a scene, and you're thinking, why did you have to just fully explain this to me? It fully explains why something happens to you, and I think the reason it fully explains it to you is because it knows it didn't really do a very good job of setting something up. For instance, in one scene, someone, an a-hole, a pretty big bad, I mean, not a big bad guy, but he's a bitch, knocks out the child who is sort of a deterrent from the crazy rage monsters. And he, like, knocks him out and then, like, cuts the kid's arm and then starts, like, rubbing the kid's blood on his face. And somebody just yells, "He's rubbing the blood on him because it keeps away the people." If you would have done a better job of explaining how this kid is a cure or deterrent, you wouldn't have had to have that really awkward dialogue in the middle of an action sequence. And it really stood out, and I really didn't like it. And like I said, there are several scenes where, somebody turns on somebody again. America working with South Korea, working with North Korea, and nobody can trust each other. Even the North Koreans can't trust each other. Even the Americans can't trust each other. It was very frustrating. Just, there's already so much going on. And then it has to be like, oh, how could you? You did this to me. Oh my God, why? We don't have time for why right now. We don't even have time for the fact that you did this. There's already 2 hours left in this movie, and I can't take it. I'm being kind of harsh I didn't hate this movie. The storytelling just had some issues that if it was just written better, and I feel like it was probably not written super well because it was more of just a straight up action movie. Like, when I say action, we'll talk about it, but this is like an action movie. I just don't feel like this movie really cared about the writing very much when it really needed to. One thing that did make this movie hard to follow was the acting and the characters that aren't written amazingly well. The performances, I think, because the characters aren't written very well, are kind of bland. And that was very noticeable. I don't know if I was going for notable or noticeable there. Within the first 45 minutes of the movie, because when you're trying to take in all this exposition, you're trying to absorb the movie, you're trying to understand why, who, where, and how, it's hard to invest your interest, your time, when the characters are boring. And I didn't notice how boring the characters were until I think it was Mike Coulter. I looked on the IMDb. He's not on it, but the IMDb is not that filled out, I don't think. There's a lot of people in this movie, and the IMDb has like 15 people. I'm pretty sure it was frickin' Luke Cage. He popped up for probably only like 5 minutes, but in that 5 minutes, he is the most charismatic person on screen. And at that point, I was like really in it. And it's not just because he's a familiar face. It's not because I love Luke Cage. It's because he has gravitas. He has charisma. And I could invest myself when he was talking. Whenever anybody else was going and they just had a dead face and they weren't really emoting very much, I struggled. I struggled really hard. But this is an action movie, and again, I mean an action movie, so let's talk about some action. Again, this is a single take film. Every scene just constantly flows the camera from one scene to the next. And it's very impressive. It really is. Because if you consider something like Birdman, Birdman kind of takes place like on one city block. Then you go to something like the excellent One Shot. Again, if you need a really good Wonder movie and you haven't seen it yet, One Shot from, I think, last year is amazing. But it all takes place on one compound. And then you have like 1917 covers the range of like a whole battlefield kind of thing, crossing the terrain to get to wherever you got to go. This movie takes you like all over frickin' South Korea and the frickin' DMZ and probably into North Korea. This movie covers some distance. So it's kind of impressive to have a single shot story never covering as much space as this movie does. I don't know if that's weird, if you understand what I'm saying there, but it's crazy. It's very impressive. Here's where I struggled a bit. I love Villainess. I love the action in Villainess. I think Villainess is a beautifully made film. The action is stunning and visceral. It's visceral in its gore, in its brutality, but also the way the camera moves. The camera moves, most of the action in Villainess are single take action sequences. However, the camera moves like it's the church fight scene in Kingsman. It works because it's spared. It's done sparingly. It's not the whole movie. That is this whole movie. And I got a headache a couple times. Now, whenever it's like it's a talky bit, whenever it is a slower exposition dump scene, the camera slows down. The camera, it's dialogue time. But as soon as it's action time, that camera starts moving, and it's really difficult because there's always a lot going on, and sometimes it's not planned out super well, like having a bunch of people wearing black clothes against a black background and I can't tell who's who. But it's just so much. There's so much action in this movie. So much action. I guess this is how it's supposed to be. Like if you watch like The Raid, every scene is just to get you to the next action scene, but this is like that times 30. This is a video game. every dialogue scene is a cut scene, just waiting to get to the next action sequence. And there's a lot of it. There's so much action, and it's so kinetic, and it's so visceral, and it moves around so much. Again, it's like the fight scenes in Villainess. If you've seen Villainess, you understand how that looks, but add that to like the Kingsman church fight scene. But that's every single action sequence in this movie, whether it be a gunfight, whether it be a knife fight, more martial arts. There's not really that much kind of stylistic martial arts. Not even something I'd compare to like a Villainess or a Man from Nowhere, No Tears for the Dead. But it's just so much movement, so much kineticism, that I don't think it was necessary. Sometimes you just need to calm down. Sometimes you just need to chill. Sometimes you just need to sit back, cut a few times, find your angles, and you're okay. Now, I'm not saying you can't see what's going on. You can 100, maybe 98% see what's going on a majority of the time of this movie. It's just so hyperactive that I don't think I ever want to watch it again. Meanwhile, again, the fight scenes are the way they're framed and shot is similar to The Villainess or Kingsman, and I will go back to those movies several times because that's not the entire film. The Villainess is a very slow movie with very few fight scenes, and that's why it's so wonderful. You can handle that level of kinetic movement, kinetic energy, kineticism, activity. You can handle it in segments. But that is this whole movie. This whole movie is kinetic. And it's too much. The man needed to take an Adderall and calm down. Now, in that, there is some creativity. One thing that I did think was really cool was towards the end of the movie, there is this scene where the main character is sort of looking down a sniper rifle. And the movie will sometimes, it will go from gliding around being a single shot scene, and suddenly the camera will move to directly in front of somebody, and now you become them, sort of. You become their perspective, and that is interesting. And one of the best ways it takes that is the main character looks down a sniper rifle, and the way it frames that you are sort of the one looking down the scope, I thought that was awesome. That was incredibly done. It was also very slow paced, and it sat the fuck still. Do I think there is something here to watch as an action fan? Yes. I think this movie is worth watching one time for certain people. Some people may watch this and want to watch it again and again and again. That's not me. I'm happy I watched it once. It was a lot to handle. There was a lot of plot. There were several plot points going on with a lot of different twists and turns that was kind of hard to follow, with a lot of boring characters and boring performances. But once the action started going, then you kind of got your heart racing, you started going, and then you thought, all right, I'm done now. All right, I want to get off this ride. Is the ride over? No, I have 2 more hours in this ride. I didn't want to puke. It wasn't puke worthy. It was just a lot. It was exhausting. This movie was fun, fast-paced, overwhelmingly exhausting. I am going to give Carter... Oh, I'm exhausted thinking about it. 2.75. That feels a little generous, but I'm going to stick with it. 2.75 crazy rage viruses out of 5. This movie is a lot to handle. You may enjoy it. I recommend you watch it. And then you decide if it's something you would ever want to revisit, or if one watch was enough for you. Because one was enough for me. So tell me your thoughts on Carter in the comment section down below. What was your favorite part? What was your favorite fight scene? And do you love the Villainess? Tell me all those things in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Head over to Facebook, where there is the Martial Arts Film Freak Facebook page, Instagram Martial Arts Film Freak, and Tristan_Glover on Twitter, and Martial Arts Film Freak on TikTok. I should also say, one thing I liked about this is I was like, where's the rage virus come into play throughout the first half? But then it really came in handy in the second half. It really became a thing in the second half, and I think that was a very smart idea. Don't overwhelm the people with everything all at once. Introduce one of the major elements in the second half. I think that was a very good idea. But I digress. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. I'm tired. Not because it's 11 o'clock at night, but because I'm thinking about this movie. I'm going to go to bed now, and my dreams are going to exhaust me even more because I already know I'm going to have a dream about this fucking movie.